Now, theme is probably one of the harder ones to interpret because of the fact that it is purely interpretive. Now, stories won't tell you what a theme is. They won't say the theme of this story is this. You have to interpret them. You have to justify them and argue. Now, the thing about them is you can literally write about any theme in a story, provided that you go deeply into it and that the theme is deep enough that you can actually talk about it as having relevance to the story. So if you're talking about a big action movie and you're saying the theme is love because the character falls in love and has a kiss at the end, that's not really a theme that encompasses the whole story. And it's not one that you can really justify as being significant to the story. So you need to be very selective of that. Now, a theme can be interpreted for a key idea or effect of a text. So something that sort of goes through, or is basically the predominant idea of what the text is trying to achieve through its construction, through its characters, and through the language that it uses. So through the combination of all those things, you start to get theme. And it's one of the more integral parts of the critical analysis. Now, there can be ideas relating to things like philosophy and psychology. So you can make a very philosophical statement and say that is the theme, is trying to make a philosophical statement, or to do with something of the mind or the human experience. It can be feelings. So it can be a sort of emotion that's trying to get people to, whether it be a theme of fear or something along those lines. Personal issues. So basically things like family, relationships, communities, all those sorts of things, and how people relate with their world, basically. So not communities as such, but how people relate to their world. Political, social. So that, again, those two ideas sort of relate to society and the way that society is. Cultural, how cultures are. And things like religious and spiritual sorts of ideas, so to do with people's spirituality, belief in a higher power or afterlife or something like that. And life in its stages, so it might be just about being young and old and the meaning of life, those sorts of things. So there's lots of, again, themes you can interpret. And that's basically it for how to critically analyze a text. So remember, the four main categories of things that you'd be looking to interpret, you'd be first of all looking at construction of your story. So how the story is constructed, how it's put together. Next thing you look at is language. So the sorts of language techniques and devices which are used throughout the text. Next thing you'll be looking at is your characters, and particularly things like narration and the way that things are detailed. And finally, your themes. And through a combination of all those things, you should be able to construct a fairly detailed analysis of a story and have lots and lots of things to talk about in terms of how you understand and how you interpret a text. Now remember, it's something you do in your own way, and particularly a lot of texts are quite highly interpretive. So, in other words, they're texts which completely want you to come up with your own interpretation. So think about what they sort of mean to you. Look at the text obviously in isolation first. So basically you watch it and you get your own ideas about all of these things. And then you start to take notes and start to think about some things which are significant to you and which are going to be significant to your answers later on. So that's basically it about how to critically analyze texts. So until next time, I'll see you later.